There is a sense that football is missing from the football fans' life and they want it back. But do fans want it back at any cost? I don't think they do. It's possible for football to clear all the hurdles in its path placed by the pandemic and for it to complete the season. It's just that there's many of them. The main one remains as it has always been, and that's approval from the government.
More positive steps about getting players back on the pitch. The UK government coming out and saying that they want to see action ASAP.
What we do know is that the government wants football back. The Culture Secretary, Oliver Dowden, has said that it needed to happen as soon as possible within the constraints of it being safe to do so. The reasons why they want it back have been varied. Dowden said that he wanted it back because of the financial benefits it would bring to football as a whole, although that has been challenged by other competitions, particularly those lower down the league system. The Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, also said that it would be a lift to the spirit of the nation.
I think it would lift the spirit of the nation. I think people would like to see us get back, not just to work, but also enjoy some of those pastimes, sporting in particular.
Once the government has given approval to the Premier League's return, that doesn't end the issues. In fact, it almost brings them into clearer focus. Safety is not something that can be guaranteed at this point in time, and particularly not with the pandemic still being abroad in the country. No football competition has as yet returned, even behind closed doors, which is what the Premier League proposed, as well as being at neutral venues. The fear is that however hard you might try to disinfect your training areas or minimize the number of people who might enter a ground in order to broadcast it for television, the risk of transmission of infection is still real. And football is a contact sport. You can't practice social distancing in football. There are estimates that as many or even more than 40,000 tests will be required in order to keep on top of the situation over the course of a 7-week period in which games are expected to be played, 10 weeks if you include the training that will precede it. Now that 40,000 might well be a conservative estimate, and while the league is confident they can get hold of the tests, it's not entirely guaranteed that the public will accept football taking up so many resources, which up until this point in this country have been quite scarce.
I think when we're looking around the world, I don't know the testing numbers for NHS and care workers. I don't think it would sit well, not just with me, but with anybody, if we didn't make sure that people were getting tested who are in that front line.
There's also issues around quite how you enable training to go ahead when players have been away from playing for 6 weeks and certainly up until this point have not been able to train together. But perhaps the most unquantifiable thing at this point is how you persuade the players to get on board. Not many players have spoken about how they feel about the current situation, and it's understood that it's a mixed picture. But those who have spoken have genuinely talked about being afraid. A lot of them have young families, a lot of them have elderly relatives. They're not sure how putting themselves in an environment where they are going to be in close contact with other people could risk themselves and could risk their loved ones.
It's quite farcical. Some footballers will have newly born children, sort of little babies that are weaker and even more inclined to possibly get the disease if the footballer's carrying it. To spend 8 weeks away from your family is, I think it's quite a big ask, to be honest.
That also applies, by the way, to coaches, match officials, broadcast technicians, maybe even the journalists who might be invited in to report on these matches behind closed doors. Everybody has questions.